This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. The holidays are over, the decorations are down, and suddenly everything feels a little empty. It's normal to feel the winter blues after the holiday excitement. January, February, and March are by far my least favorite months of the year. It's cold and dark, and I have to get some extra vitamin D on board. I also need to keep my regular scheduled appointments with my therapist. So if you're feeling that post-holiday funk, I definitely suggest you checking out BetterHelp because maybe it's time to talk. You might also be one of those people like me who makes New Year's resolutions and you get super motivated. So maybe you need someone behind you to hold you accountable and come up with a plan to meet your goals. BetterHelp is super convenient, totally online. You have a therapist right at your fingertips whenever you need them. So head over to betterhelp.com/wifeofcrime1 to get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/wifeofcrime1 for 10% off your first month.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Sometimes the most painful part of getting sick is the getting better part. Waiting on hold for an appointment, sitting in crowded waiting rooms, standing in line at the pharmacy, that's painful. Amazon One Medical and Amazon Pharmacy remove those painful parts of getting better with things like 24/7 virtual visits and prescriptions delivered to your door. Thanks to Amazon Pharmacy and Amazon One Medical, healthcare just got less painful.
This podcast is an unscripted, unedited conversation about true crime. We take the cases very seriously, but I don't take myself seriously at all, and neither should you. Welcome to Wife of Crime.
So, Russ, there are a lot of conspiracy theories out there, but one that has always fascinated me is the death of Marilyn Monroe. This Hollywood starlet seemed like she had the perfect life, but behind the scenes, things are never what they seem. And the events surrounding her death are just as crazy as the life she lived. This is the case of Marilyn Monroe. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Wife of Crime, a true crime podcast where I tell my husband, Russ, true crime stories, and he reacts to them.
What's up, folks? It's your boy Russ, a.k.a. No Way Rose.
Oh, no way, rosé.
So for the second episode in a row, I'm drinking some rosé, which the last one was in the True Crime and Chill, but it carried on over.
Yeah, you know what's so funny? I went to the liquor store today, and I was going to buy you some rosé, and one of the bottles is called Yes Way Rosé.
Wow.
I should have bought that one. And then it would have matched your AKA. That's a lot of rhymes. Rosé, AKA.
Well, you know, I like to be drinking and thinking, so it works out. But speaking of rosé, did you see that Gypsy Rosé broke up with her husband, the Fire D?
Oh, it's funny you say Gypsy Rosé and did a shimmy at the same time. If we had a camera, everyone would have seen you literally shimmy when you said rosé. I don't think I've ever seen you shimmy in my life.
I'm kind of embarrassed. I didn't know I did that. I think because it was a pun and I thought it was going to be funny to Jess. And now I'm just ashamed of myself.
The shimmy was funnier.
All right.
So Gypsy Rose, Gypsy Rosé, she broke up with her man.
The Fire D.
Who has apparently Fire D.
But at least he got good reviews out there to the world.
True.
For the rest of the women. I mean, he looks like a schlub, but
apparently that D is fire.
He's going to go back to the jail dating apps.
Well, it's funny the memes out about after that comment went out where she said his D is fire and the internet exploded, but also how much he looks like her mom is kind of creepy.
Yeah, they both kind of look like Chris Farley. All right, so I also have something else that I found interesting, which, well, let's see if you do.
Okay.
So, there's a doctor called Clive Bod,
Mm-hmm.
and he did a study where female psychopaths are much more common than we think.
Oh.
It was once thought that male psychopaths outnumbered female psychopaths 6-1.
Yeah, I would have thought that.
But this UK professor is actually claiming that the ratio is more about 1.2-1, so it's almost even.
Oh.
So he argues that female psychopaths are flying under the radar because of gender bias.
I mean, that makes sense. That makes total sense.
Yeah. Fellas, we get a bad rap, and listen to this.
Mm-hmm.
So women use deceit and seduction to gain social and financial advantages more than male psychopaths do. So we know how manipulative they are, fellas. Jess is manipulating me every day.
Well, I totally can see that. I think women do use their femininity to get things sometimes. I mean, but
And
you
then
gotta do what you gotta do.
All right. So a male psychopath, I guess, uses a knife.
Well,
So
he
you
uses
should-
like brute force.
So, and female psychopaths tend to use words rather than violence to achieve their aims, differing from how male psychopaths tend to operate. And he said he was going to do something online showing his study.
Wow.
When? I don't know. You can look that up for yourself because I'm not going to watch it.
You're not-
But I just found that little article a little bit interesting.
It is really interesting. I mean, I think it's true. When it comes to female psychopaths, I think that it's easy for everybody to look at women as less dangerous than men.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of crazy women out there.
Yeah, us men are verbally abused by these psychopaths, and nobody wants to save us. It's an epidemic.
Well, I think it's crazy, but I think that his study probably has a lot of validity. I'd love to learn more about it you're going to forget that you even read that, so I'm going to have to look it up myself, I think, because when I ask you in a few months about it, you're not even going to remember that this episode even occurred.
That's true, but I will remember that females are crazy. So I'm like, oh yeah, they are crazy. Tell me about it. So I have a busy week of things I found interesting.
Yeah, you've really come here with a lot to say.
I know, and people are going to leave a review telling me to shut up, but you shut yourself up. So did you see that the heist where the guys got away with $30 million in Los Angeles?
Yeah, I did hear about that. I don't know the details, but I heard about
Well,
it.
I did know you knew about it because we spoke about it.
Okay. I was trying to play along, okay? Trying to play along.
Yeah. So that's crazy. It was like, I think it was like one of those armored truck places where they like keep all their money in a safe. As far as I know, the people broke through the wall and like got the money, and there's like no sign of where they went. And it was like 30 million in cash.
It's pretty nuts that you would think that an armored vehicle storage place where they keep a safe full of money would be a lot more heavily guarded. But it's definitely an inside job, everyone thinks, right?
Yeah, see now, I don't condone the behavior, but I do understand.
Yeah.
Like, I understand why the people did it, and I don't approve, but I could see why you might try.
Yeah, I could see why you might try. I also
Because
think...
working sucks.
I think Ocean's 11 was like such a cool movie. So I think that if they were trying to be on their Ocean's 11 stuff, I get it. Well, this month, if you're in the crime family, you have lucked out because you have gotten, or you're getting, 5 episodes back to back in a row of True Crime and Chill. We recorded our second episode of our series where we're watching Homicide New York on Netflix, and we're doing an episode for every episode of the docuseries. So we recorded our second episode this week. It's going to be coming out later this week. And it's been really fun because we get to be nostalgic about New York, since Russ is a born and bred New Yorker and he gets to talk all about his city that he loves. And it's been a really fun thing. And I feel like this series is so good. If you haven't seen it, go watch it on Netflix. Homicide New York. So far, the first 2 episodes were so good.
Yeah, so far, for someone who doesn't like to watch documentaries, it's good because it's also short and they don't stretch like one case into a 4-part episode with 2 episodes of fluff in between. This is like 45 minutes to an hour or something like that.
Yeah, and everybody in the episode are New Yorkers, so they're very short and straight and to the point, I feel like.
Yeah, and
No one is an over talker.
what I realized by watching this is my New York accent isn't nearly as strong as some of these people.
No, your New York accent isn't really that strong. When you listen to your own sister and your own mother talk, your New York accent is not even nearly as strong as either one of them.
Well, my mom's is the strongest, and my sister, she still works like in a bar in New York.
In the Bronx.
In the Bronx, so her accent is just, embedded.
It's embedded. It's never leaving.
So on Patreon, folks, we got a ton of episodes over there. Now, if you go over there and say, Russ, there isn't 2,000 episodes, and you said there was a ton, I just mean it's a lot. Don't be like that. Don't be that weirdo on the internet. And we have benefits over there where you could get like merch and stuff like that comes along with your membership. And you also get a shout out. And if you hate commercials, we don't have commercials over there, but if you like commercials, good for you too. So this week's Patreons are Keandra, Monica, Kelly, Racy, Lexi Ann, Ashley, Moosey, Kenny Meek, Eddie, Big MF Nasty. We did a little MF Nasty last week, right?
We did. And Big MF Nasty is her boyfriend.
Damn, y'all motherfuckers is nasty. All right, I see you. Kayla, Lane, Tracy, Holly, Marley, Julia, Sandy, Kara, Carly, Nicole, Brandy, Jay, Amber, Marlena, Amy, Christy, Angie, Summer, Ashley, Destiny, and Amy, a.k.a. my kid calls me bruh. I want to see a video of that. Wait, maybe the kid's like 9. He calls her.
I'm sure so many kids nowadays probably say bruh, because I say bro to you all the time.
Yeah, and I'm like, what are you doing?
No, we both say it to each other. You say it to me too.
Not as
it's
much
just part of our language nowadays. And kids nowadays are always. But if my kid called me bro, I don't know how I'd feel about it.
It would be wedgie time. I think that's the problem with today's generation. I hate being the old person in the room, but it's probably lack of wedgies.
Wedgies? Really? Did you give and get a lot of wedgies?
Back in the day, wedgies were given by the older kids. If you did, they would get the younger kids to give them wedgies, and you'd be like, I better chill before he gives me another wedgie.
Really? Wedgies were that big of a thing?
It was an epidemic.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't like the biggest thing. You also got punched.
Yeah, you got punched too. It's true.
All right. So every week I do review of the week, and I have a PSA.
Okay.
We got to get these reviews funnier. You guys are sincere, and I love it.
Oh, you like the sincere ones, but you prefer the funny ones that roast you. Like the one time that said, I thought Russ was bald.
That was hilarious. Or maybe if someone wrote a review saying, Jess sounded bald. Or something like that. Come on, folks. You guys are getting mushy on that.
Oh, they're getting mushy, and they got to step up their roast
Listen,
game.
just because I got hurt don't mean I can't take it.
Oh, that's what it is. Maybe everyone's sensitive because you're hurt. They're like, oh, we got to be nice to Russ now. No one's roasting you anymore.
Nah. All right. So this one is from a.k.a. 5 stars from Texas. Found this show a few weeks ago, and I've been binging it and telling my true crime friends about it. Russ reads a review that said, I'm shocked how much Russ doesn't know about children. And I'm not, because same, #child-free by choice. But I am shocked at how little he knows about the South, specifically Texas. And his Southern accent is terrible.
It is really bad.
I'm from Texas, and I can tell you we don't ride horses and fire pistols in the air. Yeehaw! I added that in.
Oh, okay.
Although this girl is always packing. #not me, not today. All that to say, this podcast is hilarious. Highly recommend.
Nice. I do feel like every person that reaches out from Texas is packing.
You guys always...
Every single one.
Maybe that's why everyone, they say, is polite over there.
Maybe. But it's crazy. Every time we get a message for anyone from Texas, they're always like, oh, we're not like that. We don't shoot our guns and all. We're not like, but I do have a pistol in my purse. I do have a pistol in my pocket.
Yeah.
And we're like, wait.
When my mom moved out of New York City, she went and got herself a pink pistol.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I guess, that makes you girly. And also, I forgot, so cheers to you guys. I have a can here.
Oh, yeah, cheers.
Thank you for joining the Patreon.
We forgot all about the cheers part of the patron shout-outs. We're moving too fast. We need to slow down. So I did a poll a couple weeks ago on Patreon so they could pick the upcoming episodes, and it was a close call. A serial killer case won, and that's the one we covered last time, the case of Kenneth McDuff. In second place was a conspiracy crime. Now, I don't think we've ever covered a conspiracy on our show.
Aliens.
And I got really excited when I saw the amount of people that wanted it. There are a lot of famous conspiracy theories out there that we could talk about. And if everyone is into this one, we will cover more in the future for sure. But I decided to cover a case that I personally find so incredibly fascinating and have for years. Marilyn Monroe, the iconic Hollywood actress, captivated audiences with her beauty, charisma, and timeless sex appeal.
Happy birthday to you. Wait, it was Mr. President.
Yeah.
I messed that whole thing up.
However, behind the glamour, Monroe grappled with a lot of personal struggles, including depression, substance abuse, and many tumultuous relationships. The death of Marilyn Monroe remains one of the most captivating mysteries in modern history. While it was officially ruled a suicide, persistent rumors and theories suggest a more sinister reality involving her alleged affairs with the Kennedy brothers, President John F. Kennedy and his brother, Robert Kennedy. The conspiracy theories surrounding Monroe's suicide gained traction immediately after her death on that fateful night, August 5th, 1962. So today, I'm going to bring you down the rabbit hole with me, where I've been for the last week learning all about her life, her death, the juxtaposition of who she really was versus the character she played, and the many men who loved her, used her, abused her, and may have even killed her.
Many men.
Yes. Are you ready?
Yep.
First, I'm going to start by asking you a question. What do you know about Marilyn Monroe?
I know she's saying, I know she got around. She had a lot of boyfriends.
She did.
I know she was with Joe DiMaggio.
Yes, she was.
I know that the Kennedys killed her.
Well, you don't know that.
Hey, we all know that.
No, that's a conspiracy theory that I will bring up, but there are many theories surrounding her death. So you don't know that because no one knows that.
I think she slept with a few of the Kennedys or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's it.
Okay. I thought I knew a lot about her until this week. Turns out there were a ton of things I didn't know. And what I did learn about her makes me even more fascinated with her life and her death. On August 5th, 1962, the world was shocked to learn of the untimely death of the infamous Marilyn Monroe. At 3 a.m., her housekeeper, Eunice Murray, claimed she woke up and sensed that something was wrong. She stated she saw a light from under Monroe's bedroom door, but was unable to get a response after knocking a bunch of times. Murray then called Monroe's psychiatrist, Ralph Greenson, who arrived at the house shortly after and broke into the bedroom through a window, finding Monroe naked, laying face down, dead in her bed, surrounded by empty pill bottles. The LAPD would not be called until 4:25 a.m. after her physician was called, came to the house and pronounced her dead. According to her autopsy, Marylin died between 8:30 and 10:30 p.m., about 6 to 8 hours before her psychiatrist and housekeeper found her. The toxicology report showed that her cause of death was acute barbiturate poisoning. She had chloral hydrate and pentobarbital, also called Nembutal, in her blood, and the pentobarbital was also in her liver. The possibility that Monroe had accidentally overdosed was ruled out because the dosages that were found in her blood were so many times over the lethal limit. Therefore, her death was quickly ruled a probable suicide.
Wait, so she didn't have enough of the medicine in her to be a suicide?
No, she had too much of the medicine to be considered an accidental overdose.
Oh, so that's why it was considered suicide. Gotcha.
Yeah.
'Cause the whole time I'm thinking, who put the drugs in her right now? But she could have killed herself.
But what would cause a woman like Marylin to feel her only hope for peace was to end it all? Many close friends say this cannot be the case.
No one believes that most of the time their friends would do that. So I don't know if you can go by that.
Well, I'm going to tell you all about her life and what led up to these events, and then we're going to discuss the conspiracy theories. And at the end, we'll see what you think.
I think that Joe DiMaggio, they say, really, really liked her, though. Like, it wasn't just like but back then, she was like, everyone would say the hottest woman in the world. There were probably others, but back then they would all say that. And that's like the only woman that like my grandmother spoke about from back then. I guess like she was so famous.
Yeah. Joe DiMaggio was completely in love with her.
And she messed up because, you get a boy that's always in the Bronx and you're going to be all right. Right?
That's right.
You had no choice but to say that.
Norma Jean Mortenson was born on June 1st, 1926, in Los Angeles, California. Her mother, Gladys, was not a very stable human at all. She suffered from a mental illness, and when Norma was a young girl, her mother was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. As a result of this diagnosis, Norma was placed in foster care and lived a majority of her childhood shuffled between foster homes and orphanages.
Damn.
She would end up living in 12 different homes over the course of 12 years.
Wow.
Some of these foster homes were riddled with abuse and neglect, and little Norma Jean, sadly, fell victim to the worst of it. She was molested by multiple men throughout her childhood in these various homes. At age 8, she saw a picture of her biological father and was determined to find him. She fantasized about a life with her father, being a daddy's girl, having a protector, a man love her the way a father should. Sadly, she would spend the rest of her life searching for that love in all the wrong places, hoping these men could fill the father-shaped void she carried with her, but they never did, and in every case, it ended in disaster. When Norma was just 16 years old, she was living with a family friend who arranged her marriage to a 20-year-old guy who lived next door named Jim Daugherty. Jim was a nice guy, but soon after getting married, he went off to fight in World War II, leaving Norma home alone.
So did Joe DiMaggio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the baseball players back then that were big went to the war too. That was crazy.
I think everybody went. Yeah. All the men that could go went.
That's great. Yeah, because the world could have ended and we all could have been Nazis, I guess.
Yeah. There's that show that shows like if the Nazis had won, what the world would have been like.
Yeah,
I forgot the name of that show.
I tried watching it, but I never get through the first episode.
So she decided to get a job working in a factory, like most women did back then. While the men were away, the women worked the men's jobs and held this country together, literally. She was the real Rosie the Riveter. You know who Rosie the Riveter is?
I don't even know what a riveter is.
Rosie
I'm not even kidding.
Rosie the Riveter is the cartoon of the woman who has the bandana on her head and she's holding up her fist and it says, "We can do it." It's to represent all the women who took on the men's jobs after the men left to keep the country together.
Well, what are they riveting?
Manufacturing things.
What's a riveter?
Rosie the Riveter is a cartoon.
That's just her name.
Yes.
Like I'm Russ the Profiler, but
yes,
profilers
and she's Rosie the Riveter.
But what is she riveting?
I don't know what Riveter is. Don't ask me questions I can't answer in the moment.
Don't bring up rivetization.
Okay, anyway.
She's a rivetologist?
Okay. While working in the factory building machinery, a photographic journalist came to the factory to do a story on the women working there to kind of boost morale.
Yeah, and then he saw Marilyn Monroe and he said, "Damn."
Well, he took one photo of Norma and said, "You are a natural. You know, you could leave this factory life and become a model. She wrote her husband to tell him, but he was completely against the idea. So she decided to leave her home and her husband and pursue fame. She wasn't in love with him anyway. Their marriage was arranged by someone else. She was only 16 when she married him. So she signed with Blue Book Modeling Agency in 1945. Her career started with mainly pinup shoots for advertisements and men's magazines. Around this time is when she straightened her hair and dyed it blonde. And then she got a lot more work after that. She also started going by the name Monroe, and this quickly made her one of the busiest models, and by 1946, she had been on 33 covers.
Back then, that was a big deal, because nowadays you could get exposure, you know, just from the internet. But there were gatekeepers back then. It just like, you know, even, you know, up until the 90s and 2000s, like you couldn't get on TV, magazines. Look at all these Instagram models.
Yep, it was a big deal. Her acting breakthrough came a couple years later when she signed with 20th Century Fox.
I didn't know she did acting.
Oh, she acted in a lot of movies.
Wow.
Yeah.
I thought she was a professional thought.
No, she was an actress.
Oh.
She added the first name Marylin given to her by one of the studio executives. This is when Marilyn Monroe was born. They decided to model her look after the gorgeous Rita Hayworth. Marilyn was quickly rising to the top, modeling and having small roles in box office hits. And in 1952, due to her popularity with the soldiers overseas fighting in the Korean War, she was declared Miss Cheesecake 1951 by Stars and Stripes magazine.
Because she was thicker than a Snicker.
She wasn't that big. There's a rumor that Marilyn was a thicker girl. She wasn't. She was a size 14, but sizing back then is different than sizing now. Oh. So the equivalent of a size 14 then, now would be like an 8 or a 10.
Well, listen.
Which is, you know, an average size woman. When you look at pictures of her, she's very average size. She's not a thick girl.
She's not, but I don't mind a little meat on my bones.
Oh, no, you don't. You like... You don't mind it at all. The thing
just like she's gaining weight, I'm like, looks good to me.
The thing about Marilyn is that, you know, pictures back then weren't edited. And there were a lot of pictures of her with her belly, like, just being normal. Like, it wasn't photoshopped. It wasn't edited. She had a roll when she sat, and she didn't, like, suck it in. Like, her roll was there, like every woman has.
Well, it's not just every woman. Even when I was in my fittest, everyone who sits down, you have a little fold. It just is what it is. It's anatomy.
Yeah, it is. And so nowadays, all these pictures are so photoshopped. But when you look at pictures of her, I mean, she was hot as hell. She really was.
Well, she was pretty, but...
No, Russ. You need to look at her photos. Look at her Playboy centerfold. She's hot.
So I just went and looked up Marilyn Monroe's Playboy thing. It's a very familiar picture. Didn't we have this picture in our bathroom?
Oh, yeah. We did.
Weren't the boobies covered in the bathroom?
No. Oh, yeah. They were covered. Her boobies were covered in our bathroom, yeah.
But, you know, she had a nice body. She's covering her face in this picture, but she's a pretty woman.
Yeah, she's beautiful. When you look at all of her pictures, I mean, there's so many pictures of her that she's just gorgeous.
She is. I don't know about, like, they would say she's like the prettiest woman of all time, or some people say that, but she's very pretty.
Yeah. Well, on the outside, it looked like Norma Jean was living her best life. Behind the scenes, it was a corrupt and often perverse climb to the top. The Hollywood studios of that day were all ran by men who used their power to exploit up-and-coming actresses. Many of the beloved actresses of the time that we remember today, like Rita Hayworth, Bette Davis, Joan Crawford, and Natalie Wood, and many more, got jobs based on what they were willing to do on the casting couch.
I bet.
If you didn't audition on the casting couch, you didn't make it to stardom, period. And it's pretty sick. Well, like, we have Harvey Weinstein, who is now, you know, convicted for doing all of this to these women. But back then, this was how women got into show business. So when you watch all of these movies on Turner Classic Movies, you know, you see these black and white films where the women are portrayed as these, like, wholesome housewives. And you have to realize that what these studio executives put them through to even make that movie is crazy. And they were all underpaid significantly. Marylin, at the top of her game, was making less than half of what the male actors were making. And she was literally bringing home like $400 a week. And this is the 60s, and that wasn't that much for a famous person.
You don't have to be famous. You don't have to take these jobs. You could live like everyone else. I'm not condoning it. I know you're going to get mad at me. But if me in that situation, if there was a casting couch and they're like, hey, Russ, you ain't going to get on this show unless you S that D. I'm like, I guess I don't want to be famous. I'm going to go back to work. But we all make choices. You could choose to keep your dignity and go do something else.
Okay.
These guys were pieces of shit, but
they were 100%.
I'll go get me a job at whatever the hell they had back then, Caldors or something. Sears, JCPenney, I don't know.
In early 1952, she began a highly publicized romance with retired New York Yankees baseball player Joe DiMaggio.
Oh, I didn't know he was retired when they were together.
Yep. One of the most famous sports personalities of the time. The press immediately picked up on the relationship and began to cover it nonstop. Monroe and DiMaggio preferred to keep a low profile. They spent evenings at home or in the back corner of DiMaggio's restaurant. On January 14th, 1954, they were married at the San Francisco City Hall, where they were mobbed by reporters and fans. Monroe had apparently mentioned the wedding plans to someone at her film studio, who then leaked it to the press. The couple went on their honeymoon to Japan, and while they were there, Marylin was asked by her agent to fly to Korea and perform for the soldiers. She went to Korea for a couple days, leaving Joe in Japan.
That's weird.
He was incredibly unhappy about this. After they got back to the U.S., tension continued to build, particularly around DiMaggio's discomfort with his new wife's sexy image. Which, hello, this is who you married. Like, by the time he married her, this was who she was. You can't expect to get married to her and then all of a sudden she just become a regular housewife.
See, I'd be okay with the sexy image, but I wouldn't be okay with you leaving to go perform for the soldiers on our honeymoon.
I get that.
That would, like, first of all, you're just an attention seeker at this point.
Well, 100% she was an attention seeker.
Well, that's true.
We know that.
Because she got him. She got his attention, who was one of the biggest stars, at the time.
Mm-hmm. But he knew what he was getting himself into.
Yeah, but maybe he didn't know she was such an attention seeker that she would leave in the middle of your honeymoon to go be with the soldiers or something.
Well, it was a paid job. She was getting paid to go there. But she also liked the attention, of course.
Yeah, well, I'm assuming Joe DiMaggio had a lot of money.
I'm sure he did.
For the time.
One memorable blow-up happened in September of 1954 on the New York City set of The 7-Year Itch. As Monroe filmed the now famous scene where she stands over the subway grate with the air blowing up her skirt.
Yeah, that stinky air all up her skirt.
A crowd of onlookers and press gathered around. The director had arranged for the media attention to kind of promote the movie and get people talking. Well, as her skirt blew up again and again, the crowd cheered and roared, and DiMaggio, who was on set, became irate and lost it. DiMaggio and Monroe were divorced in October of 1954, only 274 days after they were married.
Damn.
In her filing, Monroe accused her husband of mental cruelty. It was well known and documented that Joe wanted a quiet life and a stay-at-home wife. He wanted children. He truly did love Marylin, but he wasn't ready for all the male attention that came with her. Many people saw him explode and become both verbally and physically aggressive with her as a result of his jealousy over all the male attention that she received.
I wonder if he had enough money where he was like, maybe she won't need to work as much now because she's with me.
Probably, but I don't know if they discussed it or not.
I'm just guessing.
In 1956, she married playwright Arthur Miller, but their marriage also ended in divorce 5 years later, in January of 1961, and this left her incredibly emotionally fragile. She was prescribed multiple anti-anxiety medications and began to drink more heavily. In February of that year, she was admitted to a psychiatric hospital after her psychiatrist told her that she needed to go to the hospital for rest and relaxation. Marylin agreed with this, thinking this is exactly what she needed. But she didn't realize that she would be institutionalized for days on an involuntary hold.
That's a bad place to go for relaxation. She go on vacation.
Yeah, she definitely didn't need to be there. She was scared to death. Yes, she was depressed and anxious, and yes, she was abusing alcohol. But she knew she didn't belong in a psych hospital. She begged one of the nurses to call Joe DiMaggio. Eventually, the nurse snuck her a phone, and she called him. Joe immediately called the head doctor of the hospital and demanded she be released. He said, quote, "If you don't get my wife out of here, I will take this hospital apart brick by brick." She was released into Joe's care, and he took her to the Yankees Florida spring training camp for the rest and relaxation.
Well, Yankees aren't just a baseball team. They're also a rehab facilitation for thoughts.
Though rumors swirled about them getting remarried, they maintained their just good friends status. You guys already know because we have been talking about them for a while now. VIIA Hemp is by far one of our favorite sponsors we've ever had, okay? We use their products all the time. Maybe you're a little like me. You're a little anxious. You have a hard time settling down. You're kind of wound up a lot. If that's you, VIIA Hemp products are for you. Check out their website. You will find something that speaks to you. Maybe you're like Russ. You have a hard time sleeping because you have bad nerve pain or chronic pain. Then VIIA Hemp is for you because their gummies will help you get some quality sleep. Maybe you're looking to have a really good time. Maybe you just really like edibles. You want to laugh. You want to get the munchies. You want to watch a movie and have a really strong belly laugh. Then VIIA Hemp products are for you, okay? They're literally for everybody. So head over to VIIAHemp.com, promo code wifeofcrime1 to get 15% off your first order. That's VIIAHEMP.com. Wife of Crime #1 for 15% off your first order. Last year, Save More Money was the most popular New Year's resolution in America. Clearly, a lot of us feel like our money is slipping through our fingers. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm not the best saver, and I don't know much about investing until I started saving and investing with Acorns. Turns out you don't have to be an expert at all because Acorns will recommend a diversified portfolio that fits you and your money goals. And I always thought that when people say, ooh, I invest in stocks, that they had a ton of money or something. Well, you don't need to be rich. Acorns lets you invest with the spare money you've got right now. You can literally start with $5. And you know you guys are spending that at Starbucks on these fancy lattes. So skip the coffee and invest with Acorns. You don't even need a ton of time. Like you can just sign up and start investing within 5 minutes. Head over to acorns.com/wifeofcrime or download the Acorns app to start saving and investing for your future today. That's acorns.com/wifeofcrime. Around this time is when Marilyn Monroe would meet Senator John F. Kennedy. And this is the part of the story where the conspiracies start to creep in. The following is based on days and days of research from multiple sources, but I cannot definitively say that this is fact. So let the conspiracy theories commence. By 1962, Marilyn was heavily abusing alcohol and prescription drugs, all of which were prescribed to her by her psychiatrist, Dr. Greenson. In May of 1962, Marilyn performed her seductive an absolutely infamous rendition of Happy Birthday to President JFK at Madison Square Garden in one of the sexiest dresses anyone had ever seen.
I would like to say that wasn't that good of a performance because she was just whispering.
Well, I'm going to play it for you,
Oh, okay.
and we'll get your reaction, okay?
president is winding up his New York day here at Madison Square Garden at a sort of pre-birthday celebration. Mr. Kennedy has the best seat in the House at the function, and it will be starting just about now, the finale for this affair.
Mr. President, on this occasion of your birthday, this lovely lady, Marilyn Monroe.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Mr. President. Happy birthday to you. Thank you so much. Everybody, happy birthday.
I'm going to let you finish.
Uh-huh.
But that was the most awkward rendition of Happy Birthday of all time.
You thought it was awkward?
Awkward AF. Happy birthday.
Well, she was clearly a little intoxicated, I think. But she felt
She needed some
honored.
auto-tunes. Maybe T-Pain could have saved her.
She felt honored to be picked to perform for him. But she didn't know that this would solidify the rumors that had been swirling for months that Marilyn Monroe was having an affair with the president.
No, she knew.
Jackie
She can't be this oblivious.
Jackie O, his wife, was not present at the birthday celebration, which furthered rumors and speculation. After this, JFK was too afraid that the rumors could ruin his reputation and chances at re-election, so he broke off the affair. But his brother, Attorney General Robert Kennedy, a.k.a. Bobby, was waiting in the cut, and he jumped in and he picked up the pieces, and now these two started sleeping together.
Damn.
This is something that multiple sources claim the Kennedy brothers did for years, all through college, with different women. John would start the relationship, cut it off, and then Bobby would pick up the pieces. The brothers allegedly shared multiple lovers over the years. It was a bit incestuous, if you ask me.
He's taking the leftovers.
Yeah, it's really, I find it really weird.
Well, they always say leftovers are better the next day.
So in May of 1962, she performs Happy Birthday. JFK breaks off the affair, and she starts sleeping with his brother Bobby. And then by August, she's dead. When looking into the death of Marilyn, there are a few theories that continue to circulate, although nothing, not even the official narrative released by police, has ever been proven. As I said in the beginning, the official timeline of August 5th, 1962 goes like this. At 3 a.m., Monroe's housekeeper, Eunice Murray, claimed she woke up and sensed something was wrong. She stated she saw a light from under Monroe's bedroom door, was unable to get a response after knocking a bunch of times. Murray then called Monroe's psychiatrist, Ralph Greenson, who arrived at the house shortly after and broke into the bedroom through a window, finding Monroe naked, laying face down on her bed, surrounded by empty pill bottles. The two of them had called her private doctor, who arrived around 4 a.m. and pronounced her dead. And then at 4:25 a.m., the three of them called the LAPD, who arrived on the scene, and then she was taken to the morgue and an autopsy was performed. The autopsy showed lethal levels of two specific sedatives in her body, phenobarbital and chloral hydrate. The phenobarbital was also found in her liver. Now, here we go.
What's phenobarbital?
We are entering the rabbit hole. It's a sedative.
So would she be taking that on her own?
So she had a prescription for phenobarbital. It's also called Nebutol.
What's it used to treat?
It's used to put you to sleep. It's a sedative.
Okay, and what was the other one in her system?
Chloral hydrate, which is also a sedative.
Okay.
Okay. Here we go down the rabbit hole. Ready?
No.
Although there were multiple empty pill bottles laying around Marilyn on her bed, there was no water in her room to take such pills. And the water in her bathroom sink, it wasn't working at the time. So dry swallowing that amount of pills is incredibly unlikely. There were also 0 capsules or residue from the pills found in her stomach. Now, that is impossible. The following is an excerpt from the investigation later conducted by John Miner, the prosecutor who reinvestigated Marilyn's death. Quote, "It is unlikely that Miss Monroe swallowed a large amount of Nembutal capsules without leaving any traces of the drug in her stomach or duodenum." The duodenum is the part of the intestines that the stomach empties into.
I always wondered what happens to the capsule part of the pills. It's not really plastic.
No, it's not. It definitely disintegrates. We can conclude from the fact that had she taken so many capsules orally, there should have been yellow dye stains in the stomach or duodenum. There were no such stains. These capsules were nicknamed Yellow Jackets because of the yellow dye on them. Another piece to this crazy puzzle is that a full and accurate autopsy could not be performed because some of her organs and tissue went missing. Completely disappeared.
Oh, from the autopsy storage facility.
From the morgue.
Morgue. I couldn't think of the word.
They're gone. Pieces of her missing. Another strange thing that occurred is that Eunice Murray admitted to police that she started washing some of the sheets before the police showed up. She has never explained why she did this.
She's a good maid.
I'm smelling a cover-up.
Even in her death, she's trying to keep that place clean.
So if she didn't swallow all those pills, then how did she die? There was a lethal dose of Nembutal in her body. How did it get there? Well, there are 2 other possibilities of how it got there. Number 1, it's from an injection. Number 2, through an enema.
Through the butt.
Or a suppository, yes. In ancient Rome, Emperor Claudius was murdered by his wife, who gave him poison in an enema.
I know, they had enemas back then.
The injection theory is tough to prove because there wasn't a clear injection hole seen on the body during her autopsy. So during an autopsy, they go up and down the body. They sometimes use a magnifying glass, and they go up and down the body looking for any type of injection hole. There was none seen or reported on the autopsy. There was, however, bruising on her thigh. Could she have been injected there? Possibly. So we know the manner of death is questionable. Based on the autopsy not finding pill residue in her intestines, I am a firm believer that she didn't kill herself. I'm a firm believer in that at this point.
Before you told me this, I always thought it was a known fact that the Kennedys killed her. I thought that that's what everyone just knew.
No,
but I also didn't really look into it.
Not a fact. That's a theory.
Oh.
And it's one of the conspiracy theories. So I'm a firm believer she didn't kill herself. But the question is, who did?
Joe didn't do it.
Who would want Marilyn dead and why? As the podcast The Killing of Marilyn Monroe states, who has the motive, the means, and opportunity to do this? Was it the housekeeper, Eunice Murray? Marilyn knew Eunice through her psychiatrist, Dr. Greenson. Eunice and the doctor were old friends. And some believe he pushed Marilyn to hire her so that Eunice could keep tabs on her for the doctor. On recorded tapes of their therapy session, Marilyn tells Dr. Greenson that she wants to fire Eunice and asks Dr. Greenson to help her do this. Was Eunice angry about the fact that she was about to get the boot?
Nah, this can't be it.
Eunice had been interviewed multiple times over the years, and each time the bigger details of her story changed. Although I personally think she knows way more than she's telling, I do not believe she killed Marilyn. She did appear on a BBC interview 21 years after Marilyn's death, and after the interview was finished, she thought the mics were turned off, and she said, quote, "Why at my age do I still have to cover this thing up?" She said that on air, but she never explained it when they questioned her about it. Eunice Murray died in 1994. That thing she was covering up, it died with her.
Well, if she didn't do it, I mean, whoever was in the house to commit the murder, she had to have like heard something. Well, we're assuming that she was murdered.
Conspiracy number 2. Was it a mob hit? So let me give you the tea on Marylin and the mafia. Marylin was known to have mob ties through her good friend and ex-lover, Frank Sinatra.
Another one.
Frank was friends with many mob associates, and Marylin would frequently hang out with Frank at his Calneva Lodge in Lake Tahoe. The weekend before her death, Frank Sinatra flew Marylin to Calneva Lodge to have a meeting with the head of the Chicago crime family, Sam Giancana. There are many rumors about the reason for this weekend's meeting, but despite the over 100 books written about Marilyn Monroe, absolutely no one knows exactly what happened over the course of those 48 hours. What we do know about the mob, Marilyn, and the Kennedys is this. One of the most explosive books came out in 1992. It's called Double Cross by Chuck Giancana and Sam Giancana Jr. This book is the biography of Sam Giancana, the crime boss. And in it, Chuck claimed the mafia killed Marylin and 15 months later killed JFK and 5 years later killed Bobby. The book states that mafia boss Sam Giancana struck a deal with JFK's father, Joe Kennedy, in the late 50s before JFK ran for presidency. Joe told Sam, if you help my son get elected president, you'll have his ear. This was huge for the mob. Of course, he wanted to own the president. That's exactly how he saw it, like he would own him.
Yeah. And I think the mob was in charge of a lot of the unions back then, so that the unions had a lot of votes.
Absolutely. So Sam Giancana did get JFK elected. It was a very, very narrow win, but he made it to the White House because of the state of Illinois. After this, the CIA approached Sam Giancana and asked if the mob could take care of Fidel Castro. At the time, Fidel Castro was in power in Cuba, and the mafia lost a ton of money on their Caribbean casinos, so they were definitely down to try to kill him. They tried poisoning him on multiple occasions, but it wasn't successful. The relationship between the mob and the Kennedys quickly went sour after Bobby Kennedy became Attorney General and started this huge crackdown on organized crime and went after Jimmy Hoffa and the Teamsters. After this, Bobby and Sam became mortal enemies.
That'll do it.
The mob actually bugged Marylyn's house, trying to get dirt on Bobby to blackmail him. The book claims that the CIA reached out to Sam Giancana a second time, but now the hit would be on Marylyn. See, she was sleeping with both the president and the attorney general, and because of this, she knew a ton of sensitive information. She also threatened to go public with her relationship with the men after Bobby wanted to end it.
All that pillow talk, man.
Mm-hmm. The mob agreed to kill her because they wanted to hurt Bobby by using her murder as a way to expose Bobby's corruption. In the book, it says that Marylyn's house was bugged by an ex-crooked cop named Peter Otash. Peter worked for the mob and Hollywood. He spied on a lot of people and he bugged a lot of people's homes. The mob was listening in on the evening of August 4th. They knew Bobby was going to come over to the house and try to stop her from going public with the affair. While Bobby was there, they began arguing and Marylyn became irate. The man with Bobby, a guy named Peter Lawford, was instructed by Bobby to give her a shot so she would, quote, calm down. After this, she was partially sedated, and then Bobby left the house. Then, 2 hitmen came into her house, stripped her naked, inserted a Nebutol suppository. They emptied all of her pills into a bag, and then threw the empty bottles around her and left the scene. That is the claim that this book made, the book Double Cross, in 1992.
It seems plausible.
Definitely seems plausible. My only question is, I feel like when it's a mob hit, they just come in and shoot you in the head.
Nah. You see how they tried to poison Castro, and they'll be slick about it.
They'll put a Nebutol suppository in someone's butt.
Well, you know what they say, like in South Park, what's in the butt?
Like, seriously though, don't you think that I'm definitely buying the mob hit a lot. I think it's a very plausible thing, but I just feel like that's like, why wouldn't they shoot her in the head or inject her with something?
Because they want it to look like a suicide. But so what you're saying is you don't think that the mob is creative enough to do this.
I don't. I thought that they...
Nah, they didn't just kill by like that. They definitely had multiple ways of doing things.
Okay. I mean, that's good. It's good to hear you talk through that, because I really was thinking that. I'm like, why wouldn't they just shoot her? Like, that's what they did. They shot everybody.
They didn't want to get dirty.
Maybe not. So this was all disputed heavily by another mob associate. His name is Gianni Russo, who actually starred in The Godfather, but was really in the mafia. He worked for Frank Costello, the Don of the Luciano crime family in New York City. Gianni Russo claims he himself slept with Marilyn when he was just 16 years old and she was 33.
Wow.
So this is a quote from the New York Post article that promoted his book in 2019, because his book just came out. Costello had asked him to keep an eye on her for the mob. Monroe and Russo saw one another on and off for 4 years. He claims to know how she really died. Russo showed the Post a photo of himself and the actress in 1962 at the Calneva Lodge, a resort on the California and Nevada border. Remember, she went there a couple days before she died with Frank Sinatra because he owned it.
Yeah.
It was taken 3 days before she was found dead in Los Angeles of what coroners deemed a drug overdose. Russo said the man behind the camera was Chicago crime boss Sam Giancana. According to Russo, key members of the mob had convened at the Calneva in hopes of setting a trap for President John F. Kennedy and his brother Robert. They wanted to film the Kennedys in a threesome with Marylin, said Russo, adding that the mob anticipated using the footage to blackmail JFK into invading Cuba and returning the island's casinos to the mob.
Wait, so they wanted to film Marilyn Monroe having a threesome?
Yes. So
so she was really freaking off.
So
Jeez
this was
Louise.
the plan that. So according now, this is not fact. Okay, you have to remember these are people writing books. Gianni Russo claims that he was at the Calneva Lodge that weekend with Frank Sinatra, Sam Giancana, and all those people. And the reason they flew her there was so that they could get Kennedy brothers there. They put cameras in her hotel room and they were trying to film her having sex with one or both brothers.
Okay.
So they could use it to blackmail the Kennedys.
So they say, allegedly.
Allegedly, yes.
I don't know nothing yet.
Yes, this is all allegedly. The plan was scuttled after JFK didn't show up. As Russo tells it, Monroe had fallen in with the mob while courting favor with JFK years before. When she learned of this plan at the Calneva, she threatened to go to the media and basically wrote her death sentence. A guy known as the Doctor, a killer for hire and an actual MD who had done major hits for the mob, injected air into a vein near Marilyn's pubic region, Russo said. She died of an embolism, but it looked like a drug overdose to the coroner.
Wow, you could just put air in a vein and someone will die?
Oh yeah, it's called an air embolism.
That's crazy.
Still, he insisted it wasn't the mob that killed Monroe, but rather Bobby Kennedy, who feared the story of his and JFK's involvement with her was going public. It had to be Bobby, said Russo. No one else would kill her. The mob wouldn't have done it. They liked her. They used her. She was a party girl.
She slept with all of them.
So that's what Gianni Russo says. He says that this whole story from Chuck and Sam Giancana Jr. is not true, that the book Double Cross is false, that the mob wouldn't have killed her, that it was this Dr. Feelgood, that's his name, Dr. Feelgood, and he was a hitman for the mob, but the Kennedys hired him and gave her an air embolism, and she died.
But she also had the pills in her.
She did have Nebutol in her system, but she took Nebutol.
Yeah, but it was a lot.
It was. So there was that in her system. So that's why his story is like, I don't know. Was it the Kennedys?
That's what everyone thinks.
We're at the one that a lot of people believe. Marilyn was in love with Bobby, and during their affair, she told her friends that Bobby said he was going to leave his wife, Ethel, to be with her. So she was devastated when he wanted to end the affair. On the Frank Otash tapes, remember, he was the guy that bugged her house? Frank Otash, the ex-crooked cop.
Sucker and Succotash.
On those tapes, Bobby is in her house the evening she died, and Marilyn demands that he leave his wife. When he says no, she becomes irate, and she says, "What do you think I am, a piece of meat to be passed around between you and your brother? I'm Marilyn Monroe." Bobby tells her, "I'm leaving you. It's over." And he demands that she hand over her diary. So, Marilyn had a red diary that she wrote down everything in. Every place she went, everything her and JFK and RFK talked about.
Wow.
Literally everything. But she said, "Hell no, I'm not giving you my diary." The argument escalated and got physical. Peter Lawford called her psychiatrist, Dr. Greenson, who knew about the diary. And he said, "You have to make her give us this diary. If you don't, and she exposes everyone, he can kiss his psychiatric career goodbye, and he could end up in prison." So Bobby ordered Dr. Greenson to come over right away and get rid of her. Private Detective Becky Altriger, who reinvestigated the crime after parts of the FBI file on Marilyn was released. It was heavily redacted, but it was released. She was told by witnesses that Eunice Murray discovered her body hours before the official timeline claims, and Dr. Greenson showed up after Eunice told him she was unconscious but not actually dead. According to her interviews, he then stuck a needle in her heart.
Whoa.
From there, Dr. Greenson, Peter Lawford, and her housekeeper Eunice Murray staged the scene to look like a suicide. That is why they didn't call police until 4:25 a.m. and why Eunice did laundry around midnight, which is something she admitted to. After her death, Dr. Greenson and Eunice Murray went on extended stay vacations to Europe. And when they came back, they both were given very good jobs. After her death, the Frank Otash tapes went missing. They've never been found. Her red diary went missing. It's never been found.
Damn, if I get a hold of that, I can make a lot of money.
Parts of her body went missing during the autopsy. The only thing left of the Frank Otash tapes were his notes about them. Her bedroom was never looked at as a crime scene, and definitely not investigated like one.
Well, she had been sleeping with a lot of powerful people. Presidents, mobsters.
Yep.
Famous baseball players.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah, so these people had connections and could have got rid of someone if they really wanted to.
And they did. Someone got rid of this woman. After her death, Joe DiMaggio stepped in and took control of everything. The only man that ever really loved her was Joe. He never remarried after her.
Wow.
He planned her funeral, and he made it a private ceremony for only close friends. He kept the media out completely, and he had her placed in a crypt at the Pierce Brothers Westwood Village Memorial Park. For the rest of his life, Joe DiMaggio put fresh roses on Marilyn's grave once a week until he died in 1999.
Wow. Hey, you know what to say about the dudes in the Bronx?
What?
We're better.
His last words before he died were, "I finally get to see Marilyn."
Whoa.
I mean, he was in love with her.
Yeah, so if she just would have stayed with him and stopped chasing the fame, she would have had a better life. But she was chasing something else.
According to his biography, Dinner with DiMaggio, Memories of an American Hero, co-authored by brothers John Positano and Dr. Rock Positano, Marilyn's death was ruled a probable suicide, but Positano claims the actress had told DiMaggio someone was going to do her in. The whole lot of Kennedys were lady killers, DiMaggio told Positano, according to the book, and they always got away with it. They'll be getting away with it 100 years from now. I always knew who killed her, but I didn't want to start a revolution in this country, DiMaggio allegedly told Positano. I'll go to the grave regretting and blaming myself for what happened to her. So another thing is they brought Joe DiMaggio to Yankee Stadium for this ceremony, and Robert Kennedy was there, and he walked up to him, and in front of all the media and everything, Joe refused to shake his hand. And so a lot of people think that Joe was under the impression that Bobby Kennedy had her killed, either by the CIA or FBI or the mob or whoever.
Could be, but he also was sleeping with the love of his life.
True. Mm-hmm. Now I have the best closing paragraph I think I've ever written. Are you ready for this?
I guess that's what that really means is shut up and listen, Russ.
Marilyn Monroe endures as a quintessential archetype of the silver screen, embodying the complexities of stardom with a persona that was deeply charismatic. Her rise to fame, similar to a phoenix rising from the ashes, showcased her resilience and ability to captivate audiences worldwide. Behind closed doors, however, Norma Jean was a deeply vulnerable creature, full of insecurity, a true juxtaposition to the blonde bombshell public image of Marilyn Monroe. The mystery surrounding her untimely death only adds to her legacy, and it leaves a permanent question mark on a life that was as radiant as it was complex. Monroe's passing left a void in the cultural fabric, a reminder of the fragility that often lies beneath the glittery facade of celebrity. Her archetype, therefore, is not just one of glamour, but also a reflection of the human condition, its triumphs, its vulnerabilities, and its eternal mysteries. We may never find out who killed Marilyn, but one thing I know for certain, a cover-up absolutely happened, and somebody somewhere took that secret to their grave.
Bravo, bravo. A round of applause.
And that is the conspiracy around the killing, I believe, the killing of Marilyn Monroe.
Most likely a killing. And it seemed like the Kennedys probably had something to do with it. That's what everyone thinks.
I mean, I honestly, I went back and forth because after I looked at all the different theories, and there are others. So there's a whole other thing about J. Edgar Hoover that I was going to add into this, but this would have made, right now, my script that I wrote is 10 pages. It would have made it like 10 more probably.
So Hoover was the inventor of vacuum cleaners, right?
No, J. Edgar Hoover was the head of the FBI at the time. And some people believe that J. Edgar Hoover hated the Kennedys as well, even though he was the director of the FBI.
Yeah.
He also hated the Kennedys. And they believe that he may have had her killed or was trying to
just for hating them?
Frame Bobby Kennedy, or not frame, trying to blackmail Bobby Kennedy just like the mob was trying to do. So they believe he was involved. But after listening to all these different things and 5 bazillion sources, I kind of buy the mob hit.
I could see that one.
More than any of them. I kind of think that what they said in that double cross book makes a lot of sense. That the CIA knew that she knew a lot of sensitive information, knew that she was going to go public with the affair, and it could have been the Kennedys and the CIA. It could have been the Kennedys directing the CIA, and the CIA reached out to the mob they were all friends and connected. You know, they all washed each other's hands. I feel like the three of them are the most likely culprits, like the Kennedys, the CIA, and the mob. And it could have been a mob hit, but it came from the top.
Yeah, but the mob didn't mess with the Kennedys no more, so they probably weren't in on it together.
Yeah, that's the thing, though. Ugh, it's so hard because they didn't like the Kennedys. So then why would they kill her for them?
You know what this is like?
I don't know.
This reminds me of a Tootsie Roll Pop. Like, how many licks will it take? The world may never know. And then the owl eats it.
When I was writing this, I thought of the game Clue. In my mind, I'm like, was it Eunice Murray with this in the bedroom? Was it the mafia with this? Like, I was literally playing Clue in my head because there's so many things. And then as soon as you say, oh, I think it might have been this, then you bring up something else. Like, oh, it could have been that. This one is very complex.
If it was a hit, Eunice knows who did it, though, because she was in the house.
I think of anybody, to be honest, Eunice knows the most. Just because of that interview when she thought the mics were off, they were actually hot. And she said, why after all these years do I need to keep covering this thing up? She knew.
Who'd she say that to?
She said it when she thought the mics were off to herself.
Oh, to herself.
It was like, oh, you never watched that documentary, oh man, it's on HBO. Everyone's screaming at their radio right now, and they're saying, "Jess, Jess, it's
old
this,
woman
it's
said
this."
The radio. Well, I guess we are on a radio.
Well, yeah, they're probably in their car, and they're all screaming right now in their car, and they're saying the documentary where the guy at the end, he thought that the mics were off, and he says that he did the crime.
Oh,
to himself.
Didn't we watch
he
that?
Talks to him. The Jinx, guys, I got it.
I forgot what that was about.
You never watched it. It's 6 episodes, so you refuse.
Oh, hell no.
So in The Jinx, at the end, he literally says it to himself because he thought the mics were off.
What an idiot.
And that's what Eunice did. So that's how I know she knows a lot more.
Yeah, but also maybe that's like, she's like, well, if I say this, maybe they are actually hearing it and I could like get the pressure out, or like, I don't know what's the word.
But then when they questioned her about it, she wouldn't say anything.
Maybe that was her way of just doing it before she dies.
Maybe that's her way of saying like she didn't overdose.
Yeah, and like she can't say nothing because she would have got killed.
Well, also her publicist, Pat Newcomb, she was another woman who was very close with Marilyn Monroe. Her publicist thought that she didn't commit suicide as well, and was like, no, there's no way. Like, these are people who knew her intimately.
Yeah, I don't buy that though.
As well.
I don't buy the suicide thing because many people are suffering on the inside that you wouldn't know. So I don't buy like, oh, definitely not.
Well, the way it was proven to me was the capsules not being in her stomach.
I just believe Joltin' Joe DiMaggio.
And all the
no bias from him being one of the greatest Yankees of all time. Zero bias.
Zero bias. Yeah. Well, and also all the stuff that went missing. It's just so much. I'm telling you, it's a rabbit hole, and I've been obsessing for the last week. I'm glad I got it out of my system. I'm glad I finally was able to tell you about it, because I've been just like in my mind going over all of these things. Like, the story is crazy. But what was also crazy to me is how this woman was so fragile and small and sensitive and vulnerable, and yet at the same time, the most well-known, powerful, sought-after, sexy woman of her time.
You know what she reminds me of? Jenny from Forrest Gump. Yeah.
No.
Yup. And
Jenny from
Joe
Forrest
DiMaggio is Forrest. And
no.
Joe really loved her the whole time. And instead she went out and did all this shit. And when she was in trouble and she was inside the psych ward, who did she say call? Joe. Joe said, I'll tear this place down. So Joe to the rescue, just like Forrest.
Yeah.
So she's like Jenny.
And you hate Jenny.
Oh, I hate Jenny. And now I don't like Marylin for breaking Joe's heart.
Well, he loved her until the day he died.
All she had to do was stop getting attention because Joe had the cheddar.
Yeah, he probably... I know. She was just such a broken individual.
He had a 56-game hitting streak, and he couldn't keep hitting that.
She had such a tough, horrible childhood. I mean, she just was broken. She was just a broken person. Ugh.
There was a lot of paths for her to choose for happiness, and the paths she chose that she thought would make her happy were paths of self-destruction.
Yeah, it was very self-sabotaging. All right, everybody. Well, have a wonderful week. Thank you for tuning back in. We will talk to you later. Check us out on Instagram at Wife of Crime Pod and Facebook at Wife of Crime, the Crime Family, and Patreon at Wife of Crime Pod. Don't forget the fly-ass merch at wifeofcrime.com. Mm-hmm. I still want one of those Camp Wife of Crime shirts. Everyone got one but me. And everyone does have one but you. I know. I keep asking Jess, can I get one? You can get online and order it yourself. I don't have the password. And if it's your birthday this week, happy birthday to you. Peace, folks. All right. Bye, everybody.